So, I, like many Americans, have and have had a morbid fascination with serial killers, mass shooters, uh, just child predators, like the most extreme uh, people. And like most people that watch this type of thing, it's not obviously because I want to be like that. It's because I'm curious as to how it is that their mind works, because mine doesn't work that way, like most people. And it's actually really obvious. And it's something that I think everybody could probably understand and even relate to, which I think is really important because the one thing that I noticed that every single one of these people has in common is social isolation. Every single one of them was socially isolated. You don't ever find out about a popular kid committing a mass shooting, ever. So it's like, well, okay, that's interesting. People often take the autistic route. They're like, oh yeah, they all have autism, or they all have ADHD, or they all have some kind of a medical, mental diagnosis. Like there's something wrong with their brain. I've never really found that explanation to be satisfying. I think the reason that most people are so disgusted and horrified by it is because they don't look at it long enough for it to sink in, for them to relate to. Because the very first thing they see is so shocking and horrifying that they just stop there and they don't go any further, which is understandable. And what are they going to gain from that? Well, again, the one thing they all have in common is social isolation. If there could be some way of bridging that gap, then we could stem the tide. We could stop that from happening. We could slow, stop, and then change their trajectory. So, how to do it? Well, they obviously can't reach above where they're at. So then people that are above where they're at have to reach down below to them. So there'd have to be someone like me who's also socially isolated or has those kinds of tendencies, but doesn't agree with the mindset. And the mindset ultimately comes down to this: what separates those types of people from the rest of the law-abiding citizenry is the fact that they committed these crimes, right? And why do they commit those crimes? Why does anyone do anything? Because they felt like they couldn't achieve their goal any other way. People tend to choose the best that they can, right? They do the best they can. So if that's the best they could do, then obviously they, missed the mark somewhere. What is it that's caused this? They tend to be very young. They almost never are in are past their I'd say 30s. Almost all of the mass shooters or serial killers, they get most of their murders in before they hit 30. It's rare. I mean, sometimes you'll have, I think the BTK killer killed into his 30s, but it's rare. And even he, I think, eventually turned himself in, or at least allowed himself to get caught. So it's not a long-term thing. It tends to happen in the younger male population or younger people population. It's increasingly more female too. But they're young and they're socially isolated. And if they have family bonds, they're usually tentative or they're really dysfunctional. Incest, pedophilia, child abuse, neglect, drug abuse in the home. They're almost always from broken families that their parents divorced, things like that. People often like bringing up Ted Bundy and saying, oh, well, see, anybody could be a serial killer because even he had a good childhood. I don't believe it. Because if you really go into depth with the information that's about him, his parents, in my opinion, treated him with what I call the Hallmark special. Is, yeah, they'll say all the same cliches that the TV says to say, that the TV says that a good parent will say, but their heart is not in it, and they don't actively embrace, actively investigate, actively show concern with their own kid. It's passive. It's like, I'm going to do what I, quote unquote, am expected to do, but I don't go any further than that. I don't make any extra effort. It's not anything that I want to get involved in. It's something that I do the least amount of effort into to appease either themselves, or everyone else in the family, so that people will, appraise me socially, which is where the sociopathic mindset comes from. And almost all of them are obsessed with that. Social status. How do people look at me? Well, there you go. That's what happens when you've got parents that are concerned more about their social status, or the way that they are perceived by other people, their image, versus who they are as an actual person. And that comes from a deep-seated distrust and insecurity about people in general. So this is where I think the whole thing starts, is in the parents usually, and because they're closest to those kids as they're growing up. They're the ones that have the most control over their environment. So they're the most responsible for the way that their children grow up. And that includes people that just abandon their kid and give them to the other parent, and then claim that they can't be held responsible because they gave up custody, or that they didn't have any involvement. That's what I'm talking about. They don't want involvement with their kid. They don't want to have a relationship with their own child. They just want to appease people so that they don't have to deal with the backlash of having that kind of a relationship. They weren't ready. They didn't want it, whatever it is. So the root of all of this evil is faithlessness, and specifically it's faithlessness in the goodness of other people and the justness of the world. And I myself personally have felt these things. I know firsthand what it feels like to want to go kill people. And the reason that I never did it was because, honestly, it wasn't out of nobility, because at that time I didn't have it. I didn't kill because I was always coming up with a better plan. Because most of these guys, they'll kill one person or maybe two people. They'll kill their parents, and then they always get caught. Or they end up like the BTK killer, where they get compulsions to kill. Ed Kemper. Ed Kemper, I think, is the closest to me that I can relate to. Out of all of the serial killers, mass shooters, etc., that I've looked into, Ed Kemper is the one that I resonate with the most. The way that he grew up, the relationship that he had with his parents is very similar to mine. And I understand his mindset, that when he talks about his killings, he says, the gun went off. He doesn't say, I killed them with the gun. It's passive. And the gun got everyone that day. There's things that he says like that, where it's like he's a passenger in the car of his own life. And I know that feeling, and that's common through almost all of them. Will say something like that, where it's like, I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I'm embedded in a community. I don't feel like I'm connected to other people. I don't even know how they think. I don't understand them. They're alien to me. That's the social isolation, and it stems from their own social insecurity, yeah, but also their parents' social insecurity as well. Ed Kemper, again, to use him as an example, is shown as saying like his mom would get drunk all the time, and she only really had one friend that would come around, and even her, she'd abuse her verbally at least, and be a freak about it. That shows me that his only, or his primary caregiver, was demonstrating a complete lack of social security with other people, and that's the environment that he was raised in. So then he inherits that sickness because he doesn't know any better. He's a kid. He's going to take his cues from his parents. If his parents are fucked up, he's going to be fucked up. And everybody knows that. They don't want to admit it, but it's true. And the reason they don't want to admit it is because it's scary. Because then it's like, well, then I'm responsible for a kid. What if my kid ends up doing something stupid? Then I'll be to blame, and I don't want to deal with that, and so I'll just blame the kid because it's way easier. And so people will blame Ed Kemper, Ted Bundy, all these people for doing what they did. And it's easy to do, but you have to remember where they came from. How did that happen? They don't exist in a vacuum. They didn't just come here from space. It wasn't like Ted Bundy was born on Mars and then came on Earth and just started killing people for no damn reason. He was born on Earth. He was born to human parents. And he then decided to kill humans. And humans don't like hearing that. They don't want to know that. They don't want to think of him that way. As a human who was raised by humans in a human society that then grew up to kill humans. Because what that says about humanity is that we're getting something wrong, and we don't want to admit that because we're too concerned about our image, and that's the social insecurity, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, and that's the faithlessness that tends to pervade throughout society nowadays. All of that being said is to show that the cure for this is actually a lot more simple than what I think people have been trying to think about, is to just simply actually integrate these people into society. And how do you do it? Well, obviously you can't just throw them back in to the system and expect them to function. Everyone knows that too. So they do need help, but it's like, okay, how do you help them? Okay, you get someone that's as close to their level as you can find that isn't actually down that far. It's like one step up. It's like right on the edge. You find people, so you could get a serial killer, okay, relating to just a single murderer, a dude that killed one time. Or a dude that killed one person. So he gets it. He's a murderer too. He understands. He can relate. But he's not so far gone that he just gave up on society in general. He killed a specific guy for a specific reason. He understands murder. Gets that. He can relate to that. But he's not so fucking fucked in the head that he just wants everybody dead, including his own parents. No, there's certain people you just don't fucking kill. You don't kill women. You don't kill children. You don't kill your grandpa. You don't rape your grandma. There's certain lines and limits, right? And you get them introduced to those people. And you try to facilitate some kind of positive relationship, sustainable relationship that both of them like, that they both benefit from, and have them do something that everybody can agree on. Art, music, painting, guitar, drums, singing, dancing, plays, TV, sports, video games, all that stuff everybody has in common. I don't care who you are, you listen to some kind of music. I don't care who you are, you watch some kind of video footage. You are an audio visual media consumer. All of us are. So we've all got that in common. So use that, and find something that is relatable to them, but that doesn't encourage violence. And that's it. As long as it doesn't encourage violence, go for it. As long as it doesn't lead you back to the same path you came from, go for it. And that's all it takes. And society, on the other hand, has no faith in them. They say they're unfixable. They're just born bad. They're evil people. Throw them away. And Charlie Manson said this all the time. And honestly, I have to agree with Charlie Manson. He had a fucking point. There are throwaway people. I was a throwaway kid. No one wanted my stupid ass. I was a burden to everyone around me because I wasn't wanted. I wasn't had because of a happy marriage. I was had because my mommy decided that she wanted to own me as an object. And my dad was 22 years old. I've been there. I just told him that today. I remember being 22. I remember being young, dumb, and full of cum. I get it. I understand. You get urges, you get close to someone, you feel familiar with them, you feel comfortable, because that's how my parents had me, was that they knew each other from when they were kids and then they reconnected as adults. And it's like, yeah, I get that. That's a sense of security. You have with that person, you know them, they're safe. At least you know who they are. You're familiar with them. That's an easy connection. And I get that. And it feels secure. It feels safe. They've been there before. They were there when you were a kid. You grew up with this person, whatever it is. I get that. But when the parent, the primary caregiver, who is my mommy, has a social insecurity problem, which she did, she was a feminazi, then that rubs off onto me. And so for years, I was an anti-feminist. I hated feminism, and I felt that it castrated men and that it blamed men for everything. And it was just as disempowering as the thing that it was attempting to fight against. And I saw it wreak havoc on my own mom, who, ironically, late into her 30s, finally stopped working, was a housewife, and then claimed that she liked it. And after that point, she really dropped the feminism pretty much completely. The only thing that she does now is she pulls the same stupid calling card, or the same stupid, tropes of, well, everybody that disagrees with me is evil, and anybody that makes me feel bad is automatically at fault, never me, etc. Crap that the feminazis all do, but that's just victim blaming in general. The serial killers also did that, and so does anyone else that goes down this path. And it's a very simple path. It has a lot of branches, but it's the same path. And the path is, I'm going to believe that there's someone out there that has no value, that does some act that should never have been committed, and that the world would be better off without this type of person. And it starts off with one person. It's usually the mom or the dad or, whoever it is that's abusing them. And then it turns into anyone that reminds them of them, their friends and family. And then it extends to just everyone in general. And, by the time you get to that point, then you see it's very simple. It's a simple path. It's, well, I got abused. I got mistreated. And it usually happens when you're a kid, because when you're a kid, you're innocent. You weren't even around yet. You haven't done anything yet. You haven't been alive long enough to be guilty of anything yet. And yet you're dealing with this abuse. And so you can't really justify that because you didn't do anything wrong to deserve that, but it happened to you anyway. And so then you develop this Nietzschean mindset. I shouldn't say Nietzschean, nihilistic mindset that, the world is unjust, that bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. And so then I'm just going to decide one day to be a bad person, and here we are. And so that's as simple as it fucking gets. It is that simple. It's just that people don't want to accept that. And like I said, the fix for it is simple. It's just a reversal of that. You do the exact opposite. You find one person that they can relate to that doesn't abuse them, and then they have to be confronted with the reverse of what they've been confronted with in the past, which is not everyone is an asshole. Not every act is completely fucking evil. Not every relationship is domineering and revolving around, social manipulation and lying and cheating and stealing and all that. It's not like that. And when they get confronted with the fact that it is not like that it's not necessarily the case, that every single interaction is pointless, then they can open up and they can start to believe, at least in this one person, just like they learned to hate one person. Now they can learn to love one person, and then it grows from there. Okay, I can trust you, you're cool, but I don't like any of those people. Fine, that's a step up from I hate everybody and everything. Now I only hate most things, and, I hate everything except this. Okay, well, everything except one thing is one step up from nothing, so you've got some progress, and then you just build from there. And I don't see that happening because, to be frank, I think society, at least the government, runs as if the serial killers were right. It runs in a soul-destroying, inhuman, just corporate machinery, cog, soul-destroying shit. And the reason I say this is because prisons are designed like businesses nowadays. They want prisoners. They don't want to get rid of them. Those prisoners are good for slave labor. They're good for tax benefits. They're good for government sponsorships. They're good for political fucking look at how hard we are on crime. Watch True Blue with fucking Chris. I hate Chris Hansen. Look at how dishonest and fucking jaded and cynical Chris Hansen is when he comes on the TV and says, look at how hard we are on crime because we seduced some random guy that was desperate to get laid and told him that we have a 17-and-a-half-year-old fucking quote-unquote child, legally, who's obsessed with cock and getting laid all the time, and she will desperately blackmail you unless you come down here to get them. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they have decoys that actively engage with these people. They're going after them. They're not passively waiting to be contacted. They go out of their way to make sure that these people come out there. They increase the age. Because think about this. If it was a real child predator, they could pretend to be 6 and they would come down there, mouths drooling. Where are those fuckers? I don't see any of them. Every single time I watch a Chris Hansen episode, it's always 15 years old. That's the number that they chose. Why? Because it's just barely young enough for people to be like, well, that's a bit young. If they were 16, socially, that's acceptable. Most people would be like, yeah, I remember being 16. You're sexually active anyway. You're basically an adult. There's not a whole lot that's going to change between your 16th and your 18th birthday. You're basically there. But at 15, socially, that's not acceptable. Because 15, you haven't, I don't know what it is about 16, but I remember being 16. That's when I first fell in love too. That's when I first started to really delve into it seriously. When I was 15, yeah, I understood it, but I didn't ever try to do anything. And socially, that's kind of, I guess, the way that most people look at it, or at least that's the way that I've seen it portrayed. And so that's the age that they chose. The oldest that they could possibly get away with, that was still quite, just barely young enough that it would make the average viewer go, well, that is a little bit off. You know, there is something going on there. Just barely. And it's like, you know, if you were really catching real predators, you wouldn't have to go for just barely. You'd have people barreling in. They'd be fighting over each other in droves to get at the next little boy or little girl that's 6 years old and their parents have left for a business trip and it's home alone. They forgot to bring Junior. You know, that's that. Well, where the hell is that? You know, why isn't Chris Hansen pretending? Get in touch with Macaulay Culkin. Watch Home Alone. Do that, and I'll believe you, Chris. But I don't believe that you're out finding real predators because you always have to go for 15. It's always a 15-year-old girl. Wow, a 17-and-a-half-year-old legal, child. Wow, yeah, as a pedophile, my heart's racing. No, there is no pedophile that goes for 15. No pedophile goes for 15. They go for 6 or 2, or 8 or something like that, 10. They don't even have tits yet. That's the whole fucking point. That's the whole reason they get off. There's no tits. There's no bush. There's just, flat skin. And that's the turn on because they're little kid. That's the whole thing about being attracted to little kids is the little kid part. At 15 years old, you're fucking almost fully developed. You got tits hanging out. You got a bush growing. You got, you're getting your period. You've had your period for several years by that point. I mean, that's not going to be a turn on for a pedophile. That's an exception. That's like, well, I guess you kind of technically, are a kid, but you're in every way but. Now, like I say, the whole thing, this whole tirade that I'm on is about jaded, cynical shit like that, where it's like, oh, well, you can't say that because now you're defending pedophiles. It's like, no, I'm defending real integrity and common sense. If I had a 15-year-old daughter and some 30-year-old dude came in, I wouldn't call him a pedophile. I'd be real with him. You're just not going to fuck my daughter because she's still under my fucking roof, just like anybody else would. But I wouldn't go beyond that and be like, well, hey, I want the FBI to investigate you because I think you're a pedophile and that you're probably looking at kiddie porn. It's like, no, not at 15. Go watch, what the hell was that movie? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The dude in the main character gets busted for doing that very thing, banging some 15-year-old chick and he's in his 30s. And it's like, oh, well, that's so evil and so horrible. It's like, no, it isn't. And he says the same thing that I'm saying right now. It's not pedophilia to bang someone that's developed as much as an adult. And they just legally aren't considered an adult. It's the body. Does she have tits? Does she have a bush? Does she have a period? Is she, at least 5 foot? Like those are the markers that you look for, is like, are you capable of reproduction? And that's a turn on. Yeah, you've got tits, you can take care of a kid. Yeah, you've got your period going, you can have kids. That's what it is. A pedophile is not turned on by sexual reproduction. They're turned on by having sex and fucking and not reproducing. That's the whole point of being a pedophile, is you're attracted to children. Children can't reproduce. Adults can. So that's the distinct marker that every human knows in their heart of all hearts. That's the key. That's the difference. That's the line in the sand that separates who you can fuck and who you can't fuck. Can they have a period? Can they have an ejaculation? Have they hit puberty? Are they capable of sexual reproduction? And then we look at the infant mortality rates. You think I'm a liar? Look at this. The infant mortality rate significantly nosedives, meaning that it's way, way, way less likely for the infant to die during childbirth when the mother is at least the age of 16. Now, we as humans psychologically, intuitively, view 16 as the year that you're old enough to have sex and, reproduce. Why? Because biologically, that's the age that your hips are wide enough and, your testes have formed enough that you can reproduce, that you are biologically capable of reproduction. And as soon as that happens, then you become part of the sexual community. And the whole part of society is to train you to get to a point that when you reach that point, that you're aware of the risk of reproduction and that you take that seriously, that you don't reproduce with the first person that you see. You don't reproduce with just literally any person out there, because they won't stick around to take care of the kid, and that's not reproductively viable. And that's why we do it. It's emotional, yeah, but it's also evolutionary. It's just part of our biology. Now, Chris Hansen and his show, my beef with them is they take that age and they take 1 year off of it. It's now 15 instead of 16. At 16, it's almost impossible for someone to die during childbirth. The hips have widened enough that they can pass a baby through their birth canal without it ripping them open and then die. At 15, there is a significant risk, but it's at I want to say less than 5% or something like that. It's significant. It's something that you wouldn't want everyone to do, but it's so slight that given the medical advancements that we have here in the West, it's still almost a certainty that you could give birth without the kid dying. There is a significant risk, but it's low enough that it's manageable. And that's the age they chose. They didn't choose the youngest age. They chose the oldest age. They didn't choose the most extreme pedophiles. They choose the fringe that's the closest to the norm. Why go for the easy fruit? Why are you going for low-hanging fruit? If you're going to go for these fuckers, then why don't you pick the ones that are going after little babies? Why don't you go after the ones that are in charge of daycare centers and go investigate them? And why don't you do sting operations that are actually fucking helpful and useful, that actually do make the community safe? Like, I don't know, sting op the daycare, sting up the school that my kid goes to. Thank you. Don't fucking go on, some stupid weird ass fringe, site finding a socially isolated loser that lives in his parents' basement and can't get laid, and then dangle a sexually promiscuous, target at them. That's old. 15 is old. For a pedophile, that's old. That's stale. That's a stale baby. Okay? You can't be a baby and be 15 years old. Go for 6. Go for 10. Don't go for 15. You're going to find normies in there. You're going to find people
that would never do something like that. But because this quote unquote 15-year-old girl is so hot in the biscuit to get down that you don't have the chance to feel bad. And it's stupid. It's like all you're doing is you're just finding stupid people who make stupid decisions. You're not finding child predators. You're finding dumbasses. I don't care about dumbasses. I care about people that actually want to prey upon my child. Keep my kids safe. Don't do this stupid crap to make yourself look like you're keeping them safe. Actually keep them safe. You know? And that's how society is. It will send you this Hallmark card and it will tell you, oh yeah, you know, we quote unquote care. And then they don't care. And the stuff that they're doing is obviously not caring. It's just presenting itself as if they cared. And that's what everybody does all the time. People are sick of it. There's no real reality anymore. There's just all this fake crap. And people get up in arms about all kinds of stuff. You misgendered me. Or you defended having sex with a 15-year-old. Stupid crap that no one gives two fucks about unless the TV tells you you're supposed to. No one naturally cares about that crap. No one naturally cares about whether or not someone says him instead of zer. No one naturally cares about that. That's not a real biologically evolutionary adaptable feature. That's some stupid crap they invented in a laboratory to amuse themselves with their social studies degrees that have no purpose and go nowhere. So I think the society that we have now is scrapped. Just scrap it. Just throw it away. It's crap. Because you know what? I got thrown away. Why don't I throw the society away too? I totally agree with that. I don't want to kill people, but fuck this culture. Fuck this culture. I'm on George Carlin's side. I'll wash my hands when I shit on them.